All right, children and followers of the New 80s revolution, we're here. I'm creator's block is happening to me. I don't know what shows to do. I know we're gonna do some Nintendo shows. I know we're gonna do some Wrestling with the Past. I know we're gonna do horror movie night and Saturday morning cartoon. But those are all like productions. Those I can't just pick up and start talking. I've showed you everything I have. I don't know. We gotta do shows. I gotta do shows, even if they're just daily pop-ons and talk to you. I gotta do daily stuff. I miss being down here. All right, I wanted to show you something that is a part of this collection that I have showed in the past. Not all of these. I haven't gone through every one, but when I was doing a show with a co-host, I can't remember his name, but I was doing a show with a co-host. There was a little segment on the show called "Hey, Do You Remember?" And I just showed a couple of these very briefly. It was like a 5-minute segment, and that's the last time I've ever talked about these. And they've been sitting here for so long, and they are so valuable. These are so valuable. I'd say invaluable, to be honest with you. And it's paper. They're papers. I'll show you what they are. These are for the wrestling fans, folks. These are for the wrestling fans. So here's the deal. When you would go to the arena here in Rochester was called the Rochester War Memorial. And it had something to do with the War Memorial. I think it had to do with, olden times and maybe wars that passed through this area. I don't know, it was some kind of tribute to a long time ago. The War Memorial, the Rochester War Memorial. Now it's called, of course, the Blue Cross Arena, which is just disgraceful, but that's a whole nother topic. Rochester War Memorial was the site for WWF wrestling all through the 80s, 90s, and today. And if you look at some old match results, I think they hit the War Memorial in the very early 80s. 80, 81. The Buffalo Auditorium did a lot of shows and even had a TV show taped from there. Not a WWF TV show, but a Buffalo Federation taped from there in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, what you would do is you would walk into the arena, and there would be a little person, not a little person, but a person, a person behind a little podium. And that person, who's probably of average normal height, was selling programs. These things that we've all seen and loved and grew up begging for. And they were $3. There's the price tag, $3. And they were little mini magazines, right? But if you were at a wrestling show, they got you right as you walked in the door. The programs were right as you walked into the arena. You hadn't even hit concessions. You hadn't gotten your seat. Program right there. And the begging instantly begins, for a $3 program. Fine. Why were those programs special? Well, because they had match listings in them. They had these things in them. And we're going to go through them in a minute. They had these things in them. And these things would tell you who is on the card tonight. Now, you knew the main event. You might have even known a couple of other matches that were happening. But you had no... Hello, I'm doing this. What do you want?
Nothing.
Okay, I'm going to talk about wrestling stuff.
Okay. After this, do you want to go outside?
Well, we're going to have dinner, and then we're going to go in the pool.
I, I think the pool's closed, isn't it?
Pool's not closed. See you in a bit.
Okay, you too.
You knew the card. You knew some of the card. You knew the big matches because that's what drew you to the show. But you didn't know the opening matches. You didn't know you might not have even known all the mid-card matches. And so these papers would tell you who was going to be on the show that night. So they were just as important. No, they were more important than the program itself. The program itself had nothing exciting in it, nothing new. Just, dated magazine material. The match listings were huge. So let's flash forward about, to maybe 5 years ago. And my father-in-law knows a guy who says, I think you met him in a flea market or something. I got a box of those old wrestling magazines. I have to say, I really hope okay, cool. I got a box of those wrestling magazines. And he says, my son-in-law likes those. I'll take them. And I think he bought them. I think he paid $20 or something for a box of wrestling magazines. And he brought them over, and they were all programs. This is why I have so many programs. There's about 25 programs in there from house shows. Well, it gets better, because at the bottom of the batch of programs is a stack of papers. And they're all event posters. They are all lineup sheets. Fine. But here's the best part, ladies and gentlemen. The part that is priceless. I don't think these exist. Outside of somebody's deep collection somewhere in their basement, like this guy had. Ladies and gentlemen, they are all from the Rochester War Memorial. They are all event card listings from the Rochester War Memorial, many of them handwritten, written on, which I love so much. Because some kid, in this case, I think it's a girl, some girl sat there in the crowd with her little pink marker and did what I would have done. Wrote the winners, wrote the losers, wrote in extra matches. So let's take a look at this first one. It's Rochester War Memorial Championship Wrestling, Wednesday, June 19th, 1985, Rochester Community War Memorial, Rochester, New York. The main event that night is a tag team match, 1 fall, 1 hour time limit. Paul Orndorff and Ricky Steamboat. This is June 85. So this is after WrestleMania. Paul Orndorff's a good guy. Orndorff and Steamboat against Piper and Orton. The little girl drew a heart next to the winners. Looks like Orndorff and Steamboat won. Big John Studd takes on Tony Atlas. She draws a little X next to Big John Studd, who I assume won that match. I guess she doesn't love Big John Studd, but he won. B. Brian Blair versus Barry O, who ends up being Barry Orton, Cowboy Bob Orton's brother, who's in the main event. She puts a heart next to B. Brian Blair. I assume he won. And then she wrote, as you can see, kissed me. Kissed me. So I assume that this girl has fantastic seats, ringside seats. She reaches for a hug of old Brian Blair, gives her a kiss on the cheek, makes her life. She writes it on the event sheet, kissed me. Jim Brunzell, she's not too fond of because he just gets a check mark. Jim Brunzell defeats Moondog Spot. The Missing Link, who makes an appearance in Rochester, defeats Tony Gurria. And Swede Hansen defeats Jim Young. Jim Young is subbing for Ken Patera, who I assume is arrested at this point in time. I don't know. But Jim Young subs for Ken Patera, and Swede Hansen gets the Duke. Plus other bouts. And the bouts that we got was Aldo Marino. Let's see, it's Aldo Marino versus R.T. Reynolds, who is Corporal Kirshner, and then Joe Mirto versus Terry Gibbs. So there's some snooze fest opening matches there. She didn't say who won those matches. Aldo Marino versus R.T. Reynolds and Joe Mirto versus Terry Gibbs. Then on the bottom here, I used to love, because it would tell you when to watch wrestling. And wrestling was on Fox 31, Fridays at 11:30 p.m. and Sundays at 7. When scheduled talent is unable to appear due to circumstances beyond the control of the promoter reserves the right to make suitable substitutions. We have event card number 1, June 19th, 1985. Now, I won't show you all of them, but here's something equally as special. There are a collection of handwritten results. So I assume this person did not get a program and decided to keep their own notes. And this is priceless. This is absolutely priceless. Okay, these are handwritten notes by a person who went to the show and did not get a program or just decided to do this on their own. Let's take a look at one. Wrestling from War Memorial, Rochester, New York, October 20th, 1984. And I just love this. I love this. I wonder if I'll find the first show that I went to. All right, we've got Tony Garea versus Moondog Rex. Moondog Rex gets the win with a pin. You can see there. You can't see the back. Moondog Rex gets the win over Tony Garea with a pin. S.D. Jones and Rene Goulet went to a time limit draw, so they circled both names and said time limit draw. Rick McGraw takes on Dr. D. David Schultz. David Schultz gets the win. Barry Windham gets the win by pinfall over Greg Valentine. So a very early Barry Windham into the WWF, October 84. S.D. Jones gets beat by Ken Patera. So now that looks like a substitution because S.D. Jones has wrestled twice on the card. He and Rene Goulet go to a time limit draw, and then Patera defeats Jones. Looks like the main event is Sergeant Slaughter and Junkyard Dog versus Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. He wrote one fall, JYD pinned the Iron Sheik. Then on the back, they must have announced the next card, and the next card is November 20th, 1984. That's only a month later. So were they coming monthly to the War Memorial? That's amazing. They have announced a few matches, a $30,000 16-man battle royal, Roddy Piper versus Tonga Kid, and other bouts. Outstanding. Well, again, that person continues to write. I want to find some ones that are in 84. We've got 1284. Because I was at one of these. I saw a card in 84, I believe, and I'll have to look through it and maybe I can find it. But it had Bob Backlund versus the Iron Sheik and Dr. D. David Schultz versus Sergeant Slaughter. And I will remember it if I see it. If I have it in here, that will be the card. That will be my first wrestling show that I went to. Let's look quickly at wrestling from the Rochester War Memorial, Rochester, New York, 12/11/84. I love the detail. I love the detail. He knows he's in Rochester. He knows but the detail. And this is what I would have done. I would have said where I was, what town, even though I'm never leaving the town. I would have cataloged this in this little piece of paper, and he kept it all these years. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if it's the person that sold the programs. I have no idea. December 11th, 84. Bobby Heenan in action defeats Canadian Nick DiCarlo. Ken Patera defeats Jose Luis Rivera. Big John Studd beat George Wells, which is a match that made a lot of the house shows. Jimmy Snuka and Tonga Kid defeated Bob Orton and Paul Orndorff. Velvet McIntyre and Desiree Peterson beat Penny Mitchell and Peggy Patterson. Playboy Buddy Rose on the card defeats S.D. Jones, and that's all he's written. That's 6 matches, so I don't know if he left some out. I don't know why he would leave some out, but all of his notes seem to have 6 matches. May 23rd, 1985 has 6 matches. So that's interesting. Bret Hart on the card in May 1985. He defeats Rick McGraw. Bret Hart defeats Rick McGraw. I'm going to look real quickly to see Billy Red Lyons on the card in March of 85. Buddy Rose and Billy Red Lyons go to a time limit draw. That's interesting that Billy Red was on the card. I'm just going to look through these real quick to see if I can find my first card. Tito Santana and Greg Valentine in August of 85. Awesome. Oh, here we go. This is not mine, but look at this. 1983. Bob Backlund defeats Sergeant Slaughter. WWF champion Bob Backlund defeats Sergeant Slaughter in the main event. Slaughter is disqualified. Intercontinental title match, Jimmy Snuka defeats the Magnificent Morocco by countout. The Masked Superstar, who he wrote moron next to the Masked Superstar. He wrote moron. Defeated Tony Gurria, pinfall, and then wrote next to Gurria, almost won. So I think that's great. 6-man tag team action, the Wild Samoans, 2 and 3. Wild Samoan number 1 is absent. Taking the place of Wild Samoan number 1 is Don Kernoodle. They lose to Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, and Rocky Johnson. The Tonga Kid debuts very earlier than we know. Tonga Kid is in the WWF November 2nd, 1983. He defeats Butcher Vachon. And it looks like he subs for Sweet Hansen, plus 2 other outstanding all-star bouts. He gives us the update on, he gives us the recap of the 6-man match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match. The Samoans and Kernoodle are disqualified for the first fall. Johnson pins... well, that doesn't make any sense. It does. Samoans and Kernoodle are disqualified for the first fall. Johnson pins Kernoodle for the final fall. So it's a 2 fall. They won 2 straight falls. He follows that up on the back of this. Oh, the other 2 matches are Swede Hansen and Bob Bradley. Swede Hansen defeats Bob Bradley. And Rene Goulet defeats Nick DiCarlo. So there were 7 matches on the card. December 1st. It can't be. Because this card, yeah, it can. November 2nd. December 1st is the next card at the Royal Memorial. We've got Vachon versus DiCarlo, Kernoodle versus Tonga Kid, Tony Gurria versus Rene Goulet, Iron Sheik versus Bob Bradley, Jay Strongbow versus Iron Mike Sharp, and the Samoans and Albano versus Bolomo, Johnson, Snuka, and Rogers. Buddy Rogers. What an interesting card. This is from 1983. All right, so that's it. I mean, the joy of having these in general is very high, but the joy of having them from the Rochester War Memorial is it's untouchable. It's priceless. And there are so many. There are so many more handwritten ones from this person. These are all the handwritten ones. There are probably 30, I'd say. Maybe 30 in here. I would like to find mine. I know it's 84. I'll have to go through these and see if... I'm surprised I haven't yet. Maybe I did, and I just didn't have it in here, but... Andre the Giant versus the Masked Superstar, February 84. Incredible. Hogan... Oh, this is cool. August 21st, 1984, Hulk Hogan defends against the Iron Sheik in a rematch. Special guest referee was Fred Blassie. Roddy Piper defeats Tito Santana. Greg Valentine defeats Rocky Johnson. Dr. D. David Schultz against Jose Rivera. Moondog Rex is on the card. Moondog Spot. And it looks like Rivera versus Morocco was canceled. Incredible. Oh, look at this. Okay, quick story. This one is from November 1984. It's only got 2 matches listed on the card for some reason. Nope, they're on the back. They're on the back. It's only got 2 matches listed up front here. Main event is a Tonga Kid versus Roddy Piper. Tonga Kid wins by disqualification. 16-man oh, I told you that this was going to happen. Here's the card from the next show that we talked about earlier. 16-man, $30,000 battle royal. The contestants include Junkyard Dog, Rocky Johnson, SD Jones, Ken Patera, Mike Rotundo, Tony Atlas, Mr. Fuji, The Spoiler, Cowboy Bob Orton, Big John Studd, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Rene Goulet, Terry Gibbs, Nick DiCarlo, David Schultz, and Chico Rodriguez. Who's Chico Rodriguez? Chico Rodriguez is a Rochester job guy who did 3 TV shows, 3 TV tapings, and would job on the Rochester cards very early in the 80s. Chico Rodriguez also worked with my father at Kodak. And Chico Rodriguez had a very indie show at a high school gymnasium in '84, and my dad took me to it. And the one person that Chico Rodriguez brought in from his connections at the WWF was Ted Grizzly. I take that back. Goldie Rogers. Goldie Rogers and Ted Grizzly look identical. Big Chico Rodriguez goes and flaunts around all of his WWF clout. Says, I'm doing a local show. I'm doing an indie show. Give me some of your guys. Goldie Rogers is the guy. Goldie Rogers was the highlight of the local city high school gymnasium show, sponsored by nobody, in 1984, and Chico Rodriguez is in the Battle Royal at the Rochester War Memorial. Unbelievable. He is not on the rest of the card. The results on the rest of the card are on the back. SD Jones versus Mass Superstar. That actually went to a time limit draw, which is odd. Bob Orton beat Nick DiCarlo. Rocky Johnson beat Terry Gibbs. Oh, Rocky Johnson also won the Battle Royal, by the way. Mike Rotundo beat Rene Goulet. Tony Atlas beat Mr. Fuji. Mr. Fuji is not, yes, he is in the Battle Royal. Supposed to have been in the Battle Royal, but were crossed out, didn't show. Barry Windham, Samoan number 3, and Nikolai Volkov and Brutus Beefcake were supposed to be in the Battle Royal, not in the Battle Royal. This is incredible. This is incredible. I love this. I really love this. So I have a ton of these. I'll go through them, see if I can find my first card, but I just wanted to share those with you. Program match listings here on the New 80s Revolution. Thanks for hanging out with me. Good night. Now.